Welcome to the stream. Another huge day in politics. I know that there are people who also want to talk about the hour-long Dave Rubin interview that was just posted to our YouTube channel. So we're going to have time for all of that and just so many things going on. The title for this stream, at least the part about Trump bans transgender military, is sadly true. The guy who said he would be a friend to the LGBT community has announced via Twitter, which now is, weirdly a place where policy is announced, that you will not be allowed to be in the military in any capacity if you are a transgender individual. And I talked a little bit on the broadcast show today about the absurdity of that. If you haven't checked out the podcast or any of the other platforms so far, I'm going to dig into that a little bit as well. And there's just a lot going on, and I want to tell you about what's coming up on the show. And I mean, there's just so many different things that are going on right now, not the least of which is that this is a YouTube live stream. And if this is your first YouTube live stream, I do want to welcome you and thank you for joining me. We're live right now. I'm talking to you, meaning that you're able to talk to me. The way to do that most easily is to use the super chat function. The super chat function is the $ at the bottom of the chat window. You are able to send questions that you want me to answer. You are able to send comments that you want me to read and react to. All of that is more than welcome through the super chat. The regular chat often moves way too quickly to keep up with, but I will every once in a while be able to pick up something from there. But super chat is great, and if you've got comments about the Dave Rubin interview, I know a lot of people have been saying, David, I really want to talk about that. People have strong feelings about it. Super chat's a good spot for that. Also, any new members or patrons during the stream will get live shout-outs and thank yous from me. We will have a Patreon pledge challenge, which I will announce shortly, which, if it is achieved, I will release a major membership discount code. But in the meantime, you can sign up at davidpakman.com/membership, support the work that we do. You can use the coupon code IVoted17 for a modest 40% discount. You can also make a pledge of as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/davidpakmanshow. And lastly, seriously, don't troll. Last time I did the live stream, which I think was 2 days ago, day before yesterday, people were banned from our YouTube channel before the live stream even started. About a minute before, we had people blocked already. So the moderators are here. They've been fully empowered to block and ban people as they see fit. And there's going to be, you might hear things here that might trigger you. This is not a safe space for the alt-right or for Trumpists or for extremist conservatives. So just be aware that you might get banned. You might get banned, okay? So Donald Trump has announced on Twitter, I mentioned this during today's program, that he is saying no transgender people in the military, period. And this presents a number of problems. Number one, what do you do with the ones that are already there? There are a couple different estimates that are floating around, anywhere between 1,500 and 6,000 transgender service members currently out of the 1.2 million active duty people. The Rand Corporation put a more precise number on it. They said 2,450. And Donald Trump cited a couple of different concerns, and I'm treating his tweets as if they really deserve serious analysis, despite just being the offhanded utterances of a clueless madman. But let's explore it. One of the things he mentioned is this idea of the medical expense of having transgender individuals in the military. Now, of course, there's a couple different aspects to that. One is whether there are individuals who are transitioning in the military and they want something like gender reassignment surgery. But when you're talking about individuals who are transgender and have already transitioned and are now in the military, there's really no cost there, right? And the Rand Corporation has estimated that we're talking about a sub 0.5% of the total military budget when it comes to medical budget, rather, when it comes to particular medical services for transgender individuals. So it's really kind of a bogus argument. You could save way more by, shutting down half of the dozens and dozens of bases that we have in Germany, many of which we'd be safe without. So the cost argument is really a non-starter. And then you have this question of, well, in what way does having a transgender individual in the military affect our ability to have these decisive wins that Donald Trump talked about? And I've seen no serious explanation as to that. It reminds me of there was a Saturday Night Live, this was a while ago, there was a Saturday Night Live impression done of Newt Gingrich by, I believe it was Darrell Hammond. And when doing this just fake impersonation of Newt Gingrich, he said something like, well, you can't have women in the military because, they've got that vagina. That was basically the argument. And it's, of course, a ridiculous argument. And now we have women in the military. And many of our allies, including Israel, have had women, gay men, lesbian women, transgender people in the military for a very long time. And everything's fine and there's no problem. So that's the other place where this doesn't really make sense. And it seems like it's a deliberate effort to distract from the endless scandals, the attempt to take away health care from 10% of the American population via a repeal of the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, the investigations, the possibility of firing Jeff Sessions, or at least trying to get him to resign on his own. Rex Tillerson, Secretary of State, is now thinking of resignation. It's a disaster, right? And this is a play, this is a double-edged play for Trump. Once, it's an attempt to appeal to maybe that Trumpist base, which might be homophobic, but might just like the idea of Trump doing things that anger liberals, because that's a lot of why Trumpists like Trump. If you actually ask them, and I talk to them on my program all the time, I ask them, well, what do you like so far that Trump has done? Very quickly, that line of questioning breaks down into just mumbling and totally inept responses. What they like about Trump is that liberals are pissed. And the reason liberals are pissed is because they're worried about the country and where Trump is taking it. And because clearly, if you're a progressive, you're going to be displeased with Donald Trump saying no transgender people in the military. That might be a way to appeal to that hardcore Trumpist base. And then there's the distraction element that I mentioned, the idea that things are not going well for Donald Trump at all, approval rating in the dumps, has accomplished nothing, it's just a total and utter disaster, and this would be a way to try to distract from that. So questions still outstanding. Is this a policy the Pentagon agrees with? Trump said he consulted with generals, but as we learned from reading a number of analyses already, consulted with generals might mean asked generals their opinion and then did what he wanted to do no matter what. Consulted could mean told generals, this is what I'm doing. Be prepared for it. That could be a consultation. So what is the view of the Pentagon and of the generals, or as Trump called them, his generals? And also, was the Pentagon aware that Trump was going to release this policy on Twitter today? Unclear. Still unclear if they had any idea that this was coming. Let me jump into the super chats, and then I'll talk a little bit about the Dave Rubin interview. Daryl Dudley has sent a $5 super chat. Do you think Trump will do a recess appointment for Sessions so that he can stop the Mueller investigation? Good question. I mentioned yesterday on the program that Donald Trump, the timing of Donald Trump wanting Jeff Sessions to resign or thinking about firing Jeff Sessions could be because then Trump might think, and whether Trump has any idea about this, I have no idea. Trump might think, the House and Senate are going into summer recess for basically the entire month of August. I'll do a recess appointment then. There's a little bit of a problem with that. And the problem with that is that you can have what's called a pro forma session. Any member of Congress, of the Senate, can, even during recess, show up and start a pro forma session, which prevents these recess appointments. So if that's what Donald Trump is banking on, Daryl, it could fail very, very easily. And Donald Trump has banked on bogus strategies before, so it wouldn't really be a surprise. Frank McWright has sent a $20 super chat saying many Trump interviewees call out CNN, MSNBC, etc. for talking only about Trump Russia or being obsessed with Trump's Twitter. What else is there? What real positive things has he done? What do you think people need to know? Well, there's a couple different aspects to that, right, Frank? I mean, on the one hand, the Twitter thing I find to be, it's a really bogus critique to say media, and in fact, Dave Rubin said this yesterday during our interview, and I disagreed with it then and I disagree with it now, this idea that being obsessed with Trump's Twitter is a bad thing. We have, for the first time, major changes to policy, to actions and activities of the government being announced on Twitter directly by the President of the United States. I would argue that by covering what the President is saying on Twitter, we have a far more direct line to what it is that the President is at least attempting to do than we've had before, where we have no choice but to go through prepared press releases and statements from, the Deputy Press Secretary or whoever. So I think that the critique that that media outlets are incorrectly obsessed with Trump's Twitter is a completely bogus critique. It's a flaccid critique. It's a critique that has absolutely no testicular fortitude behind it, excuse the term. And I welcome that debate with anybody who wants to have it. What else do people need to know? There's a lot, right? I mean, there is a lot to talk about, Frank, beyond just Trump, Russia, and Trump's Twitter. Healthcare, tax plans. It's endless, right? And I'm doing everything I can to talk about it, including a lot of the things that Republicans are trying to do quietly while Trump is in the middle of a bunch of scandals. PA Barry 007, $5 super chat, said, "Isn't it cute how Donald Trump said he would be better for LGBT freedom than crooked Hillary, and yet he is doing the exact opposite with his tweet?" Yeah, and people... I guess this is a good time as any to get into the Dave Rubin interview. Some people pointed out that yesterday Dave Rubin said, listen, even though I am for LGBT rights, and as he said, he's married to a man himself, that he thinks that the whole issue of LGBT rights is not really a thing anymore. Well, day after that interview, Donald Trump says, yeah, transgender people now banned from the military on the basis of having a gender identity that doesn't align with their birth genitalia. So clearly that was not an aspect of the interview that many of our viewers agreed with. But let me talk a little more about the Dave Rubin interview. If you haven't seen this interview, yesterday we did something different on the broadcast show. Instead of having a short interview and 7 or so of the day's news stories, we did the full hour, which when you take away commercial breaks is about 51 minutes. We had the full hour with Dave Rubin. Dave Rubin, an increasingly controversial figure, right? Dave Rubin, someone I've known for a while, and I really enjoyed the conversation I had with him. We were able to talk about his political philosophy. I was able to ask him some more specific questions about how he's running his program, the Rubin Report, and the response has been all over the map. There were some people who were just really angry with me, believing that I ran the interview in some really bad way. I was either too critical of Dave Rubin or not critical enough of Dave Rubin or whatever. Then there were a lot of people who were not already familiar with Dave Rubin and based on just the one interview developed some kind of perspective on Dave Rubin, mostly thinking that he is on the right. In other words, not any kind of whatever word you want to use, progressive, liberal, leftist, etc. And then there were people who are just furious with Dave Rubin because they felt that he, furious or just critical of Dave Rubin, saying he really didn't answer questions, that this just raised more questions than were answered or whatever the case may be. And then there were just like format comments like, David, it's a bad idea to do an interview for the entire hour show. Or David, it's a good idea to do an interview for the entire show once a week or once every 2 weeks or whatever. If you look at the like-dislike ratio on a lot of these videos, way more dislikes in general than what we would normally see on our YouTube videos. And it's sort of deceptive because some of the dislikes are people that don't like that I interviewed Dave Rubin. Some of the dislikes are people don't like how I handled the interview. Some of the dislikes are just because people don't like what Dave Rubin said. So I don't know. I encourage you to check it out. We released the interview in 4 parts yesterday, and we've now released all 51 minutes and 44 seconds of the interview as one YouTube video, and you can check out the entire thing and then let me know what you think. And by all means, I'm glad to take comments during the live stream about the Dave Rubin interview. God X of X Path has sent a $5 super chat saying, how likely do you think it is that we have our own Saturday Massacre? Do you think it would have similar fallout too? So the Saturday Night Massacre was when Richard Nixon, in the throes of the Watergate scandal started firing people himself, and it correlated in many ways with sort of where we increasingly are with the Trump administration and the Russia investigation. I think that it's certainly possible that we would see further firings. And I've said I don't believe that Jeff Sessions should resign. If Trump wants him out, make Trump fire him. And if you had said to me 6 months ago, David, in 6 months you will be arguing that Jeff Sessions shouldn't resign, I would have laughed in your face and said that absolutely makes no sense. But that's exactly where I am today. I'm saying, Jeff, don't resign. Make Trump fire you, because that is going to grow the scandal and just even put even more attention on what's going on. The Preaching Show has sent a $2 super chat. Do you think this ban, I believe that you mean Donald Trump's ban on transgender individuals serving in the military, is unconstitutional? I don't know. I've not read anything so far suggesting that it's an unconstitutional ban, but that doesn't mean that such an argument could be made. But I will research that in time for tomorrow's program. Hobbitten has sent a 10 British pound super chat. David, people have been asking you to debate Kyle Kulinski on Trump-Russia for months. You keep on saying there's nothing to debate, but he's still denying it matters. Are you stonewalling us? No, I'm not stonewalling you. I'm willing to talk to Kyle about Trump-Russia, and we could just sort of figure out, like, okay, what do we know, and then how much does it matter? I don't know that we would get much out of it, right? I mean, the Dave Rubin interview was interesting because there were a lot of types of questions that Dave, because of the format of his show, had not answered that people wanted to hear answers to, and I think we got to that. You can get my view on Trump-Russia on my channel and Kyle's on his channel, and it's really just a disagreement in terms of how serious of an issue do we think it is. I think it's quite serious, and yet believe that Democrats are completely bungling this by not developing a standalone platform that they can use in 2018 and 2020. I gather that Kyle doesn't think it's a very serious issue, and I'm not sure where Kyle is on whether it relates to the credibility of Bernie Sanders as a candidate. There's a lot of stuff wrapped up in this for a lot of people. But I don't know that we would really learn anything, I guess is my point. It would just sort of be like, okay, we don't agree. So I'm open to talking to him, although I don't know how productive it would be, I guess is my point of view. Okay, let me go over a couple of other things. We've got some pretty major things going on. I hope to have soon some good announcements to make with regard to the recovery from the YouTube advertiser boycott. 30-second summary, March 31st, which is marked by number 2 on this chart. The YouTube ad boycott began. We lost 99% of our ad revenue. Needless to say, this crushed us. And it actually represents a systemic threat to the David Pakman Show at a time when I believe we need to be supporting the widest possible range of voices in media rather than narrow, given the attacks on net neutrality, given the attacks on media from the Trump administration. So it looked like we were starting to recover if you look at point 3 on this graph, which is roughly mid-May. And then at the end of June and the beginning of July, which is marked by point 4 on the graph at the right side, revenue fell off a cliff again, and we're down about 85%. So we've been going about this in 2 ways, and thankfully, there have been a number of really good articles written about this in major media outlets. The New York Times, for example, wrote a tremendous article, really well researched by Amanda Hess, called How YouTube's Shifting Algorithms Hurt Independent Media. This article was 90% about the David Pakman Show, an article in the New York Times mostly about our YouTube channel and how we were affected by it. You can read that article to learn more about what's going on. It's on our website. The journalist Davey Alba also wrote a great article a month following that New York Times article in Wired magazine called Want a Better Web? Here's an idea, pay for it. The long and short of it, whether you're looking at these articles or at the revenue graph, is that we may well be dealing with the new normal, right? We may now be in a new status quo where our YouTube channel will only make about 15% of the revenue that it once made. And as a result, what we're doing is trying to fund the show in other ways. And I actually believe that if we can succeed in this endeavor, we will be stronger than we were with our full ad revenue because we will no longer need to worry about what happens on YouTube. So one way you can support us is by going to davidpakman.com/membership, where you can sign up for as little as $6 a month or $60 for the year. If those rates strike you as too high, fret not, because on page 2 of the sign-up process, you can put in the coupon code IVoted17, and that'll give you a 40% discount. But I want to propose one other thing to you, okay? We also have Patreon as a platform on which we are raising money. And on Patreon, we're really raising it $1 at a time. You can go to Patreon and hit that red button which says Become a Patron at patreon.com/DavidPakmanShow, and you can make a pledge of $1 a month. As of the beginning of this live stream, we had 1,833 patrons. Here is my offer to you. Here's my proposal to you. And by you, I mean the people on this live stream. Okay, this is who I'm talking to. If we can get to 1,850 patrons by the end of this stream, I will create and release a major discount code. Now, we did this on Monday for 1,800 patrons, and we made it. And I created a discount code that would save you 55% off of membership. Just to show you that I am willing to best that, if we get to 1,850 patrons by the end of this stream, I will create a coupon code that will save you 56% off of membership, okay? I will create that coupon code. I will only tell you about it. It will not be announced on our broadcast show or on our podcast or anywhere else. Help us get to 1,850 patrons, and I will, of course, thank all 17 people who help us do that. So let's get that going. I will get back into the politics, and then we'll check in on that again a little bit later. U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders is checking in with a $2 super chat saying, "Hi, David. Is that a snare drum in the background?" And indeed it is. This is a snare drum. There was a question about it last time. It's right here. And it's a 5-inch snare drum with several practice pads on top of it. I've been playing drums for probably, I guess at this point, close to 12 or 13 years. Played in a band, played in multiple bands, in fact. One with former producer Lewis, where we did alt rock. And here in my apartment, I can't really have loud drums. So what I've done is taken an acoustic snare and put a number of practice pads on it. And with those pads, I can have the snares on, and it's not too loud, but it still has sort of the snare feel, right? So yes, it is indeed a snare drum in the background. And maybe I would play it at some point. Although just playing a snare drum, it's not the most exciting thing that you can do, you know, on a live stream, but it's something I'd be willing to entertain that, I guess, if nothing else. Okay. What's on the program tomorrow? So we did an interview. Let me tell you about a couple things, actually. Today on the program, I interviewed a guy named William Gardner, okay? And William Gardner is a right-winger. And part 1 of the interview was broadcast on today's broadcast show. Part 2 of the interview will be tomorrow. Part 2 of the interview gets very confrontational, specifically on the issues of gay marriage and multiculturalism, okay? So I would highly encourage you to check out this interview on YouTube. When is it that interview goes live with William Gardner? It's a good old-fashioned right-winger debate, which we've not had for a little while. Okay, so the interview doesn't go live on YouTube until the end of the week. Well, okay, if you're a member, you can check out this interview through the member portal. You can also listen to the podcast. The interview is on the podcast. But this is a really, really good interview that I think you're going to enjoy. Tomorrow on the show, we're going to talk about the cognitive dissonance that is, it's sort of, I don't want to use medical language, but it seems to have infected many Trumpists. I told you last week that despite the reality that Donald Trump Jr. admitted to meeting in Trump Tower with that Russian lawyer, something like half of all Trumpists still don't believe that he met with that Russian lawyer. Trump Jr. admitted to it, right? We also have half of Trump voters, according to a new poll, believe Donald Trump won the popular vote. Donald Trump actually lost the popular vote by what in a presidential election is considered a huge margin. Trump lost the popular vote. 3 to 5 million people didn't vote illegally for Hillary Clinton. Trump just lost straight up. And yet, his propaganda around that his fake news, one might call it, has really worked because half of his supporters believe that he won the popular vote. I'm also going to talk about the very awkward situation that Donald Trump finds himself in now, because there are threats now from Russia and from Iran that things are not going to be good for the United States if new sanctions are imposed on Russia. Now, the House of Representatives has recently voted not only on a new sanctions package against Russia, but also on a limitation against Donald Trump's power to ease sanctions on Russia. So Trump is going to find himself in this situation where, on the one hand, Republicans and Democrats in the House are moving forward on this sanctions package, which also limits Trump's power as far as that goes. And on the other hand, you've got Russia, which Donald Trump clearly is very, very connected to, saying, if you sanction us further, there will be consequences. So this is increasingly a awkward situation for Donald Trump. And I think that it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks to months. And this actually gets to another announcement I wanted to make. I just want to prepare you for when it happens. We will be going on David Pakman Show summer vacation for the last, let me see. It's the last 2 full weeks of August. It's the second and third full week. It's kind of awkward because August starts on the 31st and August ends on a Thursday. But I guess what I mean is the week starting the 14th and 21st, we will be on David Pakman Show summer vacation. And we are preparing a number of long-form, deep-dive investigative videos for you for during that time, and some YouTube-only bonus content and a lot of stuff. So there will be no shortage of content during that time. But I just feel like we're going to go on vacation, and it's going to absolutely implode with Trump, and everything will come to a head. I hope that, if that happens, I will stream live, no doubt about it. I will be visiting family in Argentina. It's only a 1-hour time difference from U.S. East Coast, so there will not be some weird time zone issue that will prevent me from commenting on what's going on. But it's always better to be in studio and focused on the show when the major news breaks. But there's kind of major news every single day under this administration. Let's go back into the super chat, then we'll get to some thank yous. By the way, just real quick, the challenge is to get us to 1,850 patrons before the end of the stream. If we get to 1,850 patrons at patreon.com/David Pakman Show, I will create and release a 56% discount code just for you wonderful viewers on the YouTube live stream. And a few people have already made their contributions. So keep those coming in, and hopefully we'll get to 1,850. The Preaching Show has sent a $5 super chat. Keep up the good work and beware of Sinclair Broadcasting taking over local media. Yeah, and in fact, let me do a search for something. Springfield, MA. Yeah, so I believe that Sinclair Broadcast Group basically bought, I might be wrong here, I did a quick Google search, Western Massachusetts, where we started the David Pakman Show 10 years ago. There were 3 local news stations, and I believe that Sinclair now owns all 3 of them. And if you watch it in a half hour, you get, 9 minutes, 8 minutes of commercials. That gets us down to 22 minutes. You've got like 6 minutes of weather. That gets us down to 16 minutes in a half hour. And then you've got a whole bunch of these nationally produced packages. So how much local news is actually on the local news? It's very, very little. It's both sad and low energy. And you've got to be a bad or sick, in parentheses, guy at Sinclair Broadcasting to be doing that to people. And I should talk more about Sinclair Broadcasting Group. Ceci Canales has sent a $15 super chat with the message, peace. Thank you, Ceci. Very much appreciate that. Frank McWright has sent a $20 super chat. What if Hillary had all of this Russia activity this early on? What if Obama gave the same speech at the Boy Scouts event? With all this hypocrisy, do you see normalization of the lack of decency from future candidates? Yeah, so number one, Frank, if Obama or Hillary did 2% of the things that Trump did, Republicans would be calling for the death penalty against Obama or against Hillary Clinton. Number two, hypocrisy doesn't matter in the sense that if you care about hypocrisy, you're against Trump right now. You either didn't vote for him in November, or you voted for him in November and have since realized that we're dealing with a nut job here. So hypocrisy doesn't matter in the sense that if you're still not concerned about hypocrisy, if you're still supporting Trump, you don't care about hypocrisy, I guess is the point that I'm making. And lastly, do I see Trump possibly leading to the normalization of this type of candidate in the future? Yeah, I think so. And, I did a big takedown of what I call Democrats Inc. on the broadcast show today. And hopefully you'll check out that video when it publishes to YouTube. And in fact, let me see when that video will be publishing. And if Democrats don't get their you-know-what together, we could be dealing with President Kid Rock or Ted Cruz sooner than later. And that clip will be going live at midnight Eastern tonight. Okay, so check that out later today or maybe tomorrow. Jennifer Carrain has sent a $20 super chat. Jennifer Carrain, who graciously sponsored 4 free memberships early on in July. Jennifer says, "Hey David, do you think what Nixon did is worse than what we think Trump and his minions have done? Every single day things seem to get crazier. I hope you get enough money where you don't need YouTube revenue." Yeah, so listen, I think that there's really no answer to that question right now. I am absolutely sure that what in total has been done by Trump and his aides and staffers in total definitely has the potential to be worse than what Nixon did. And I hope, my desire is that someday we'll find out the truth. 280Z Turbo has sent a $5 super chat. What do you make of the poll which had Kid Rock up 4 points over incumbent Michigan Senator Debbie Stabenow? How should Democrats fight back against him? It's funny that you mentioned Kid Rock, because I just mentioned Kid Rock. Yeah, I mean, I think Trump has a role to play in that, right? Donald Trump has normalized outrageous, clueless politics as sort of an acceptable platform if you're anti-establishment or willing to say things that others aren't willing to say. So that, I think it is directly related to Donald Trump. Cezi Canales following up with another $10 super chat. No question or comment. Thank you very much, Cezi. Tony Merritt has sent a £5 super chat. If Jeff Sessions were to resign or be fired, who do you reckon would be likely to replace him? Over at the Young Turks, they were suggesting Ted Cruz. Trump has this tendency to move away from the sort of celebrity senators or governors type thing. Like, he met with Mitt Romney, he met with Chris Christie. Ultimately, he did make the appointment of Rick Perry to Secretary of Energy. I think it's certainly possible that it could be Ted Cruz, but it also could be someone much less well known to us that Trump believes would basically be a pawn. I mean, I think the risk with Ted Cruz is that he might actually have some independence that he wants to assert. And Trump's not really looking for that right now, Trump's not really interested in that. Okay, let me do some thank yous. We have a number of new members. Of course, if you want a membership, and the benefits of membership are endless, but the main ones are that you get access to the daily members-only bonus show, and you get the commercial-free all-access pass, which includes members-only audio and video streams of the entire show. And just as an example of what that means, if you are not a member, today's broadcast hour is released in tidbits to you every 90 minutes from 4 p.m. Eastern to midnight Eastern, and some clips over the weekend. If you were a member, I'm just saying, if you were a member, the entire 50-minute show would have been available to you at 4 p.m. Eastern today. No waiting around for individual clips to publish, and that's also available in an audio format. So, new members who I want to say thank you to. Jennifer Valentino. Thank you, Jennifer. Really, really appreciate you signing up. Mike Farrer. Thank you for signing up. Mark Farrer, rather, not Mike. Signing up at davidpakman.com/membership for a level 2 monthly membership. Mark going above and beyond. And Edwin Breton Edwin Breton signing up at davidpakman.com/membership. If you want the coupon, if you want the discount, you can use the coupon code IVoted17. But I will mention to you, if 40% discount is not good enough and you would rather 56% discount off of membership, we've got a challenge going right now. If we get to 1,850 patrons by the end of this live stream, I will create and release just for you a 56% discount code. We started the live stream with 1,833 patrons, thanks to the generous $2 pledge from Kien Nguyen and the $1 pledge from Richard Morghese. We now have, or maybe Morghese is the way he pronounces it, we now are up to 1,836, and that doesn't make sense. I'm missing one name there. Whose name might I be missing? Well, it'll catch up. I have not gotten a notification about that third patron. We are at 1,836, 14 patrons to go. 14 patrons to go. Help everybody out, folks. If we can get just 14 more patrons, everybody will have the benefit of being able to sign up for David Pakman Show membership at a 56% discount. 56% discount. Help us get there. Just 14 patrons to go. Okay. A lot more questions coming in here via the super chat. The Prince of Prestonia has sent a $5 super chat. Thinking about Trump speaking at the Jamboree makes me feel like I got kicked in my khaki shorts. Yeah, I know what you mean, Prince. I did a story today. I was about a day behind on that story because we had the full hour interview with Dave Rubin yesterday. The video goes live at 9 p.m. and I called it Trump Loses His Mind at Boy Scout Rally, Boy Scouts Bail. The speech that Donald Trump gave at that Boy Scout rally was not only inappropriate because we're talking about kids, we're not trying to give a political speech here, or at least past presidents have not have opted not to do that. It's a totally unhinged speech, and it continues to suggest. When I got a bunch of emails after that happened, where people said, "David, I am increasingly convinced that your hypothesis of Donald Trump having the early signs of dementia is true," because he was ramblingly incoherent at that Boy Scout speech. So yeah, it was bizarre, Prince, absolutely bizarre. Repentant Gamer has sent a $5 super chat saying, Dave Rubin's classical liberal arguments yesterday reminded me of 4 legs good, 2 legs bad from Animal Farm. Low on substance, high on slogans. Well, it depends, Gamer, or Repentant. I don't know if how I should refer to you. That depends on what your perspective is. If your perspective is one that aligns with Dave Rubin's view, then you probably saw the generalities that he spoke in as a good thing, because he was laying out sort of the broader reality of the, political and economic system or something. If you wanted to dig into the nitty-gritty and you found that the lack of detail was problematic, then you probably came away with the idea that you're sort of presenting there. So diverse views on that, no doubt about that. Frank McWright has sent a $20 super chat. I caught the live show before watching today's show. Democrats' messaging sounds like charity. We're going to do this for you. It should be, we're going to help you do this. We need empowerment, not favors. What are your thoughts? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think about that. I've been very critical of this new A Better Deal strategy and the specific issues that Democrats say they want to take on with this better deal, and the Kamala Harris, I always forget how to pronounce it. Anyway, Kamala Harris, senator from California, donors already flocking to her and talking about how she's so great and she's going to run a centrist campaign, when the last thing Democrats need after 2016 is a centrist campaign. I actually am not so concerned with what you're pointing out, Frank. I think it's a fair criticism, but I don't believe that it's going to be as electorally disastrous as what I've seen Democrats do so far. Okay, so yeah, interesting, but I'm not as concerned as you are about that. But I appreciate your support. Frank is indeed a subscriber, also a Super Chat All-Star. Frank has already thrown in $40 just during this live stream, right? If you can do just $1, that's all I'm asking from you. If you help us get to 1,850 patrons before the end of this stream, I will create and release a secret coupon code for membership, 56% off, okay? 56% off if you can help get us to 1,850 patrons. Okay, more super chats. A lot of super chats coming in. Athena Harding has sent a $15 super chat. As much as I'd like to see Sessions gone, I don't think he will resign or be fired. He seems so determined to push his hawkish agenda that he would endure all the humiliation from Trump. Well, I don't think he will resign or be fired. That's two separate things. It would be his decision to resign. It would be Trump's decision to fire him, although sometimes people are forced into resignation, as we saw with disgraced National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. I actually disagree with you, Athena. I have a hard time imagining how Sessions stays. If Sessions does stay, it's basically a shit show from here on out, and I believe ultimately Sessions will depart. I hope that it is not from resignation. I hope that it is from a firing, which would make Donald Trump look even worse. Athena Harding following up her $15 super chat with a $10 super chat. I didn't have enough characters to finish. Joshua Green had some good points on why he thinks Sessions won't leave on Democracy Now! Okay, that's fair. I'll check that out and see sort of what I gather from that. Mike Locke has sent a $1 super chat with no question or comment, and I say thank you and I appreciate that. For people who want to get involved beyond just, I get emails from people who have said, David, it's since you've brought in the moderators on the YouTube live streams, I'm actually enjoying the chat. It just moves so quickly sometimes that I can't even really engage in discussion. I would suggest to you, if you want to engage in discussion with other David Pakman Show viewers and listeners, head on over to our Reddit discussion forum. We have a subreddit on the main Reddit website. You can access it easily by going to davidpakman.com/Reddit. As of right now, we have 3,909 of our viewers and listeners who are, I think we've got a blinking light here that's about to go out. Just saw that in the reflection. Nearly 4,000 of our viewers and listeners are participating in discussions. Some of the really interesting conversations that are on there. There's a report that Trump and Jeff Sessions are no longer speaking to one another. That's interesting. There's a question about if you could live anywhere in the U.S. and money was not an issue, where would you live? Which is an interesting conversation given that cost of living is a consideration for a lot of people. There were some revelations about how producer Pat has moved on to cold brew coffee off of his Keurig on today's broadcast show. There are already questions about Pat's cold brew technique and equipment on our Reddit discussion forum. There are discussions about healthcare, discussions about the Dave Rubin interview, a very good conversation about transgender individuals in the military. So if you're eager for moderated conversation, I would encourage you to go over to davidpakman.com/Reddit. A lot of really good stuff going on over there. And it's moderated by some of the same great people that are moderating the YouTube chat. So it's all good. It's all good what's happening there. And I encourage you to check that out. Okay, we are closing in on 1,850 Patreon donors. And we are also closing in on the end of the live stream. The question is, which will happen first? Because 1,850 donors will trigger a major coupon code just for you. Kenny Quant has pledged $5 per month. Thank you, Kenny. Kenny going 5 times above and beyond what it is I'm asking for, which is just $1 a month if you can spare it. Alex Bramwell has pledged $2 per month. at patreon.com/davidpakmanshow. And Mandy McChesney has pledged $2 a month at patreon.com/davidpakmanshow, which gets us to 1,839 patrons. We are 11 patrons away from the target. And, you know, I really want this to succeed. I really want to do the 56%. Monday, we reached our goal of 1,800, and I did a 55% coupon code for membership. I really want to get to the 56% coupon code this time around. So I encourage you to help us get there. Also, I want to say thank you to Kristen Racine, who has signed up for membership at davidpakman.com/membership. Kristen, opting not to wait for any damn coupon codes, just signing up at davidpakman.com/membership straight away. Thanks so much, Kristen. Really, really appreciate it, and appreciate everybody who's really come to our rescue, in a sense, in the wake of the advertiser boycott that's happening on YouTube. The Preaching Show has sent a subsequent super chat, $2 super chat. Why is the right wing so out of control? I mean, that's several hours worth of answers there. There's a couple different things going on. First, you've had the Republican Party invaded, sort of like destroyed from the inside out by the Donald Trump presidency, by the alt-right, and by Trumpists. You've also seen the right-wingers who are not Trumpists increasingly eager to get stuff done under the cover of the constant scandal of the Trump administration. And we've seen that happen since January 20th, Trump's inauguration, and I've been doing my best to continue to report to you on what is going on. It's really a combination of factors. And then you also, you know, you should see the emails I get from Trumpists. There is starting to be some degree of desperation from people who are starting to wonder whether this is all going to implode on Trump, and that's also causing the right to become even more belligerent. Vanguard Commander has sent a $5 super chat. Do you think Donald Trump will really fire Jeff Sessions? It seems like a bad move. Yeah, I think that PR-wise it would be a disaster for Trump, particularly if the goal is to put in some other attorney general who will not be recused on Russia and who might be able to run interference with the special prosecutor when it comes to the Russia investigation. But I do think that it is a very, very risky move. I hope that he does do it because it will just grow the scandal even more. Martin Anderson has sent 100 Norwegian kroner super chat saying, "Hi, David, I'm from Norway, so I don't understand your politics, but I can't really fathom how such a ridiculous person is perceived as a serious person by a big portion of the electorate in your country." Yeah, you know, every time, Martin, that I report on the new lows of Donald Trump's approval rating, my surprise is not how low his approval rating is, it's how high his approval rating is. Because even at 35, 36%, that still means that, you know, forgetting geographical differences, if you just randomly talk to 3 people in the United States, 3 adults, one of them will say, I approve of the job President Trump is doing. And that is where I share your disbelief. And when I've been traveling in Europe since the election, I can only assume when I get to visit my family in Argentina next month, your view is shared by many around the world. And my shock is that Donald Trump's approval rating is as high as it is, not that it's at record lows, because it should be at record lows. Paul Greet has sent a $5 super chat with no question or comment. Thanks very much, Paul. I appreciate that. The Preaching Show, competing with Frank McWright as for the position of a super chat MVP, sending another $5 super chat. Long live David Pakman. You do a valuable service, just like John Oliver. Preaching Show, thank you. By the way, what does Preaching Show mean? I'm actually going to click over to the Preaching Show's channel. Like, are they running an actual preaching show? Okay, Preaching Show has 5 videos, 1 subscriber, and one of them is called God's Love Explained. All right, well, listen, we don't usually have the strongest support from the religious community, but we appreciate everybody's support. So the preaching show, thanks for the kind words, and thanks, of course, for the super chat support throughout the live stream. Let's update where we are here in our quest for 1850. We started the broadcast with 1,833 Patreon patrons. Patreon is the simplest way to help us recover from the destructive effect of the YouTube advertiser boycott, which has taken us on a roller coaster ride from everything being fine earlier in the year at point 1 on this graph, this revenue graph, all the way down to point 2, the beginnings of a recovery at point 3, and ultimately to an 85% deficit in YouTube ad revenue at point 4. And my challenge to you has been, if we can get just 17 people to make a pledge at patreon.com/David Pakman Show, doesn't have to be a big pledge, it can be just $1 a month. If we can get 17 people to do it, that will get us to 1,850. And if that happens, if we get to 1,850 Patreon donors, I will create and denounce only to you, I won't talk about this anywhere else, just for you, a 56% discount code for membership at davidpakman.com/membership. I am pleased to tell you that we have just received another pledge from Delane Triplet. Delane Triplet has made a pledge of $2 per month at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. That gets us to 1,840 patrons. We have roughly 10 minutes left in this live stream, and we have 10 patrons to go before we get to 1850. It is in your hands, folks. It is in your hands. If you're interested in this 56% discount off of membership, we just need 10 more, even as little as $1 contributions at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. Let me tell you about some of the long form investigations, deep dives, as I like to call them, that we have ready to go. Any day now, we are going to be coming to you with a deep dive into the violent left. The violent left is the new talking point from some on the right. The left is so violent. The left is so angry. The left is looting and doing destruction of property. The problem of political violence is on the left. I am here to tell you it is not. And we have done a really good long-form piece on this that our intern Brian has done the background research on. Our producer Noah has done the editing on, and producer Pat and I are working on when exactly that will be scheduled for. Really good piece. That's the type of thing we can only do if we replace the lost revenue from the YouTube advertiser boycott. We have in production a really good piece on classical liberalism, particularly in light of yesterday's hour-long interview with Dave Rubin, arguably one of the most prominent on YouTube classical liberals of 2017. We've got a really good piece on classical liberalism, and I'm calling it Classical Liberalism is Really Effing Conservative. That's the title that I have in mind for it. I think you're really going to like that. We are also working on 2 additional pieces, one called Debunked Socialism Has Never Worked. I am not a socialist, but I think it's important. If we're going to talk about economic systems, we should have a good sense of the history of those economic systems. And so we have a video called Debunked Socialism Has Never Worked. And producer Noah's working on that. Former intern, current producer Noah. We also have current intern Brian working on a long-form video on voter suppression and voter ID, which is really, really good as well. Okay, so we've got those in production currently. And then the next step is that we have a long-form deep dive into race and IQ planned for you, as well as a critical thinking mini-series. The critical thinking mini-series, it really just depends on whether there's demand for the continued growth of the David Pakman Show. The critical thinking mini-series, the research is about 75% done. It would be a 12 to 15 part series. I think it is acutely needed right now, okay? Acutely needed. But it is a ton of work in addition to a 5-day-a-week broadcast show, to do a 12 to 15 piece mini-series on critical thinking. I would like to do it. So those are some of the things that we have planned. And of course, if you have long form videos that you want to suggest, there is a stickied thread on our Reddit discussion forum where you can propose long form videos. Let's look again at the super chats. We've got a £2 super chat from KLM. Much appreciated. Thank you. Thank you so much for your support. We are trying to get to 1,850 patrons before the end of this stream. We have just received another pledge from Paul Thompson, who has pledged $1 per month at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. You might be saying to yourself, I'm not going to bother because I could only pledge $1 a month. Wrong. Exact wrong perspective. If you can pledge $1 a month, you're actually more than making up for the lost revenue from any individual YouTube subscriber as a result of the YouTube ad boycott. So it is exactly those dollar pledges that will get us there. We are 9 away. We are at 1,841 Patreon pledges. We've only got about 5 minutes left of the live stream. If we get 9 more pledges and get to 1,850, I will create a 56% discount coupon code just for you. I won't announce it anywhere else. It will be available for you to take advantage of, but we've got to get to 1,850 patrons in order for me to do that. It wouldn't be fair if I made a challenge and then we didn't hit that number and I still released the coupon code, right? I've got to stick to it. In the meantime, let's get back to the super chat. Tony Merritt with a £5 super chat saying, what did Tony Merritt say? What do you reckon it would take to make the whole of Fox News turn on Trump? Sometimes I feel that Hannity would defend him even if he shot someone. Yeah, I think that what that's going... You've started to see elements of Fox News be not against Trump, but at least more connected to reality. So like Chris Wallace is one example. Shep Smith is one example where every once in a while we will get not anti-Trump, but just based in reality. So I think that if the Republican Party, if Republican insiders, senators, congressmen broadly start to become more anti-Trump, that is when you might see Fox News become more anti-Trump. Now, whether that will include Hannity or not, I don't know. I don't know. Okay, update on Patreon. Christina D just pledged $1 a month, and we also received a huge $5 a month pledge from Anthony Soet or Soetti. I'm not sure exactly how that's pronounced. I apologize if I'm butchering it. That gets us to 1,843 patrons. We are now only 7 patrons away. 7 patrons away from 1,850. 1,850 patrons will trigger a 56% discount coupon code off of membership. If that's interesting, we just need 7 more. 7 more $1 pledges gets us there. Back to the super chat. Martin Anderson has sent a 50 Norwegian kroner super chat saying, thank you for the reply. I'm not disturbed by Trump as I am by the people who believe him. Hope you get by with your revenue problem regarding YouTube. Best of luck. Very interesting. Very interesting. Right. Trump is one guy, and yeah, he's bonkers. But the problem is, as I said earlier, more than a third of the country still thinks Trump is doing a good job, and that is incredibly scary. Incredibly, incredibly scary. Paul Greet has sent a $5 super chat. Classical liberal here. I appreciate your honest journalism. I did have a question, but it's too long to articulate here. I will surely email. Thanks. Thank you, Paul. I look forward to receiving that question. The D2J Bug has sent a 10 Canadian dollar super chat saying, C is for cookie. That's good enough for me. All right. Thank you, D2J Bug. Appreciate that. Kristen Racine sent a $5 super chat saying, I finally got membership. Sorry it took so long. Been watching for a few months. You're my favorite TYT. We have no affiliation with TYT whatsoever. So I don't know if that is bad. I mean, don't cancel your membership because we're not part of TYT, but we have no affiliation with TYT. I have many friends at TYT, but we are completely independent. No affiliation with TYT whatsoever. Checking back in to our challenge on Patreon. We are looking to hit 1,850 patrons by the end of the stream, which is coming up very quickly. We started with 1,833 patrons. We are at 1,844 patrons. We are 6 patrons away, thanks to Rachel Fishbine's $2 a month pledge. Rachel, thank you very much. 6 patrons, folks. We're getting down to the wire. This live stream will end soon. I would love it if we got to 1850, and then I would create and release a 56% discount code off of membership. If you're not interested in that, by all means, there's no need to do it, but I think it would be really great. Trump will be impeached 2017 has sent a $20 super chat with no question or comment. Maybe their question or comment is that they believe Donald Trump will be impeached in 2017. Davide Ventroni has sent a $5 Canadian super chat. Rubin's labeling of himself, Dave Rubin's labeling of himself as a classic liberal while supporting single-payer healthcare fascinates. I don't think he sees the issue with that. Yeah, I actually, in thinking back to yesterday's interview with Dave Rubin, one of the most interesting parts for me was the conversation about healthcare and about Dave Rubin saying that he's classically liberal, but he supports single-payer healthcare. But at the same time, the healthcare system he described as ideal is really more of an Obamacare type system, not single-payer. I thought that was a really interesting part. Pramod Bhuvankar has sent a $2 super chat saying, people interested in classic liberalism, check Sam Seder. That's interesting. That's interesting. I mean, Sam Seder is not a classical liberal as far as I know, and I know Sam pretty well, but maybe he's done some critiques or criticisms of classical liberalism. I'm not sure. But I think that is Sam's always doing interesting stuff, so not a bad recommendation. I believe, folks, that we may not achieve 1,850 patrons. To give you it, I'm gonna try to just give one more opportunity for this to happen here, because I would rather us succeed rather than fail. We lost 85% of our YouTube ad revenue as a result of what's known as adpocalypse on YouTube. And as a result of that, we need new sources of revenue. One of those sources is called Patreon. Patreon allows individuals to go to patreon.com/David Pakman Show, and simply by hitting the red button that says become a patron, you can throw us as little as $1 a month, okay? We need this in order to make up for the revenue that we have lost. We started today with 1,833 patrons just an hour ago at the beginning of this live stream. I put out the challenge that if we can get to 1,850 patrons, which requires only 17 new patrons, right? Not an out-of-this-world thing, considering the hundreds and hundreds of people that have cycled in and out through the live stream over the last hour. If we get to 1,850 patrons by the end of the stream, I will create and announce to you a coupon code that you can use on our website, which will give you a 56% discount. This is slightly better than the 55% discount that we achieved by hitting 1,800 patrons on Monday. The bad news is that we are very close to the end of this live stream, and yet we have managed to get only within 6 patrons of where we are trying to be. We are at 1,844 patrons. And I know that some people might say, well, David, you should create the coupon code anyway. I think that if we issue a challenge, we should stick to the challenge. And sadly, I don't know that we are going to make it to 1850 today, although I would love it if we did. I would love it if we did. Upcoming interviews on the program that I want to tell you about, just as I give a little more time to see if we can get to 1,850 patrons. I think that there are some really interesting interviews coming up. Michael Wood Jr., former police officer Michael Wood Jr., who has made quite a name for himself as a law enforcement reform advocate. He is going to be joining me on Monday. Next Monday, we will speak to Michael Wood Jr. I will also be interviewing on Tuesday Peter Boghossian. And Peter Boghossian is a guy that has sort of been, he's been overlapping in a number of different worlds lately. He is in the skeptic world. He is in the sort of anti-safe space, anti-trigger warning world. He's also sort of in the Dave Rubin universe. We're going to be speaking to Peter Boghossian next Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to be interviewing Sarah Levin. And Sarah Levin is going to talk to us about some really, really disturbing happenings in the world of separation of church and state. Separation of church and state is under attack. Not religion is under attack, quite the opposite. Separation of church and state is under attack under the Trump administration. And we're going to be talking about that with Sarah Levin. That is most of next week. Then we've got the full week after that of all brand new shows. And then we will be on David Pakman's show Summer Vacation. But don't worry, there is plenty of stuff planned for the YouTube channel during that vacation. And on that note, sadly, we have not reached 1,850 Patreon donors today. I hope that next time we will be able to reach our target and I will be able to deliver to you a huge membership discount. All right, that's it for today. Great program coming up tomorrow. Thanks to everybody who joined me.